Well, good morning. It's 8:20 on trade deadline day, so we are 4.5 hours away from the trade deadline as I speak to you right now. I'm going to start with last night's game, some things from around the NBA before I get to it. I neglected yesterday to throw out. This doesn't matter to them, but I feel bad. A huge congratulations to BYU. What a comeback! That was awesome. And tournament action gets going today. They play Marquette, and that'll be tough. That's a physically tough team. That's going to knock BYU off of largely what they do, and I don't know how BYU will react. BYU has not taken down a lot of very good teams this year, and Marquette is that. But that was a great win over Iona. Way to battle. That's really become the signature of that school and their sports, and that was really cool. And I hope Greg Wrubell's voice sounds better. I talked to him briefly the other day, um, just on some thoughts on how to help his voice. I didn't want to have him use it, so hopefully he'll be doing better. I'm sure, from what I understand, he's doing. He will. All right. Jazz lose last night in Phoenix. Would have been nice to get that one. They've started really, really well. They played hard the whole night. Um, the concern is, and everyone's going to talk offense, and everyone's going to talk three-point shooting. We have slipped defensively at a genuinely terrifying level. For the month of March, the Utah Jazz are now last in the NBA in field goal percentage defense, 28th in the NBA in three-point percentage defense, and 28th in the NBA in free throw attempts allowed. I'm pretty certain, without having run all of the numbers, that makes us the worst defensive team in the NBA over the last 8 games. What's happened here, at least in my opinion, is that Tyrone opened the year in training camp doing all defensive things. And then, truthfully, I think, not one of those coaches things that gets made up in your head. I'd say legitimately, he got in. He believed we couldn't score. Um, we'd have to go back and look back at what's going on, and this would be one of those times where some analytical data would be pretty valuable to Tyrone, in the sense that um, he might feel that way, but the league couldn't score. So there's a chance that his emotion of not being able to score was off. But if you go back and look early in the year, if the league average right now is about 101 points per 100 possession, in our opening game we were at 80. In our second game we were at 97. We were okay against Philly. Then we were back to 91. We were okay against New Orleans. We were at 92 against Milwaukee. So in four of our first 6 games to open the year, we were horrendously bad offensively. We then played great defense at home for a continuous period of time. And then I don't entirely know what happened, but I think we got so worried about whether we could score or not that we're making almost. Ty might disagree with this, but it feels as though we're making almost all of our moves offensively based, um, and not defensively based. And some of them might be the same, frankly. Um, you know, Cantor is pretty good defensively, but we struggle so badly offensively that I do think that we end up um, having a problem, you know, defensively also. We just have a problem when he's on the floor. But we have become a really horrendous defensive team. And last night that was exploited. Now, what happened last night is you're playing the best of the best in Steve Nash. I mean, I went in that locker room after the game last night. They still didn't know how to. The players still didn't know what to do. They were completely flummoxed and felt that if they did one thing, Nash did the other, and they probably right. Nash's complete ability to um, Nash's complete ability to sorry, I just saw the wires, my Twitter wires flying in front of me, and you just never. It saw Dwight Howard's name, and so I just stopped. Um, but anyway, our complete ability to stop Nash and perturb him and undo him in any way. We have slipped to the 25th ranked defensive team overall in the NBA. So we really have become awful defensively. The only teams that are worse are New Jersey, Sacramento, Charlotte, Washington, and Detroit. Uh, quite honestly, this is where I thought we would be all year. The Millsap Jefferson combination simply cannot defend. And I don't know what the answer on that is. But it has yet to, let me rephrase that. It has yet to, uh, it has yet to be able to defend, would be um, the way I would phrase that. So anyway, that's kind of where we are. I thought the guys played hard. Favors is really coming around and developing. He looks better now. You got to understand. Even just look at Al Jefferson for a second. Al Jefferson's had 3 great games recently and three pretty poor games. Well, in the 3 great games, he went up against Tristan Thompson of Cleveland, Bismack Biyombo of Charlotte, and second-year player Greg Monroe of Detroit. In the poor games, he played Philadelphia and Elton Brand, a veteran defender, Chicago and their fabulous defense, which is a team defense, really. It wasn't Joakim Noah that night, but he still couldn't get going. And then last night, Jefferson wasn't very good against Marcin Gortat. This may be why we're 500 or slightly below. Uh, really, the difference between facing a good defensive player and a young and experienced one is really dramatic for Jefferson and what he's able to do. Tonight, he's got an incredible matchup in Pekovic, who you simply just can't move. And the same goes for Favors. Right now, Favors is playing second-tier guys, and he's killing them. And it's time to find out what he does against first-team guys. But Favors, when he's on the floor right now in that second unit, and usually against second-team guys, is the best player on the floor. But it's making a huge difference who he's going up against. The much talked about Alec Burks not playing, I still have no explanation. I coach's choice and thinks it makes them win. And being an analytical guy, I got into with this harping a little bit on the plane yesterday. I just there's just no my analytics just tell me that there's no way that that's true. But I'm not. That's not showing me everything. I mean, I'm not seeing everything. So, um, CJ's had some better games back to back. Um, Josh maybe shooting 39% for the year, but as a starter, he's shooting 44% and averaging 12 points a game, and seems to help Al out. So there seems to be a legitimate argument to a lot of these, and obviously some of us just kind of see it otherwise. All right, trade deadline. Huge games on the floor last night. By the way, it's worth just quickly pointing out. Portland is is done. I mean, I can't. I don't know what they're going to do today. Supposedly Jamal Crawford's getting moved, but Jamal Crawford, according to reports that I've read, supposedly Jamal Crawford and Raymond Felton have just simply led a mutiny on Nate McMillan, and they're a franchise at a crossroads. They trailed last night 55-29 at halftime. Golden State battled all the way to the final minute last night and lost to Boston. Atlanta, the Clippers finally got a win. And then the other Western Conference game last night, Houston won in the battle for the playoff spot. And then the Lakers had to go to overtime against Charlotte, whereas Chicago, who had Miami on a back end of a back-to-back, beat Miami was playing the back end of a back-to-back. Chicago won last night. And they won without Derrick Rose. That's where the wild card and all of this crazy stuff is. All of a sudden, Miami doesn't look right. Orlando has beat Chicago and Miami in their last two games. Part of me just wonders if Orlando actually made a run at it right now that they'd win this thing. Um, it's it it's just crazy, just totally crazy. Um, and huge game tonight for the Jazz. All right, trade deadline stuff. So we're all waiting on Dwight. As I record this at 8:30, it sounds as though he's going back to Orlando, which is the craziest story I've ever heard, and it puts Orlando back into this mess for another year. I don't know if he has some master plan. I don't have a feeling he's so cunning that he knows what he's doing. But the impact of this is just huge, and I really think it's derailing a lot of what Kevin O'Connor had planned. We don't have marquee guys to trade. But we had some different types of guys and some flexibility with different guys. And the way reading rumors and just getting an understanding of what's going on is I feel like Kevin was just kind of waiting to swoop into the right spot. So if New Jersey, if Dwight suddenly stayed in Orlando but didn't sign this opt out, New Jersey had to clear some space, and so then you kind of send CJ over there for either Johan Petro or Anthony Morrow. If Orlando suddenly is clearing the deck, there was rumors at the minute if they're going to move Dwight, then they're going to move Jason Richardson. If they're going to move Jason Richardson, then are they moving J.J. Redick, or is there someone else you can get in on that? They're the pecking order kind of with bigs was Jamal Crawford was one, and then a group of guys, Raja and CJ included, were the second, of big guards, were the second tier of guys that were going to be available. Now, Jamal Crawford might go, but everyone's now waiting to see what Orlando does, and does Dallas make a move now for that suddenly gets a move done for Darren Williams? Does Pau Gasol go to New Jersey for Darren Williams? Does Rajon Rondo go to New Jersey for Darren Williams? Does Houston, who's always very active, suddenly throw Kevin Martin and Luis Scola for Darren Williams and try to re-sign Darren? The minute that it was announced that that Orlando was keeping Darren or Dwight and then not keeping Dwight, the whole dynamics change, and everything is waiting on that. So it's become very difficult for teams to make their moves, and I think I think it's really giving Kevin fits because we don't have moves that dictate themselves. If the Clippers can't get some of the other guys they're interested in, then they may take Raja basically for nothing, and we would take it if some people would pay some of his money. I mean, it was funny last night. I was getting in my car and I said to Raja, was parked right next to me, and I was like, "All right, see you tomorrow." And well, he says, "We'll see." Well, that's a good point. We will see. CJ, I think there's an interest in the league largely because of his contract, and maybe they think he can do a little something for him. But again, that's where a lot of this depended on Dwight. And it's not only that just every deal ties to Dwight, it's that nobody wants to pull a deal until they know what other things are available before they make that move. They don't want to miss an opportunity. And the landscape has just never been certain enough for anybody to be able to make that decision. So that's kind of the nuttiness of where we stand right now. It is not clear what's going to happen with Darren. New Jersey may have to move Darren here in the next 4 hours. I mean, how crazy is that? You've been trying to parlay this other thing where you're getting Dwight the whole time. Now you have to flip around and make the other move, and you got to make a good one. And you got to understand what they all are. The way it works, by the way, is at 1 o'clock today Mountain, you have to be on the call with the NBA. Now, there's a chance there'll be 5 or 6 calls all in queue, so you could be at the final pieces of your negotiation and make that phone call and get in line and maybe try to iron out the final details while you're doing that. But if either side hangs up at any point, the trade is dead. And if you get called into the queue without the final pieces done, it's over. You can't – the league really has to believe you had it done by 1 o'clock Mountain Time, 3 o'clock Eastern. So it's nutty. All right, there we are with tip off. I don't know if I have any other. You probably like some real specific rumor, but I think the best I can do, because I think those rumors aren't always true, though everything that's been out there this year has made a lot of sense, is outline, as I have in numerous places, what it is that we could or couldn't do. And I think you guys understand that at this point. We'll see. Vocal coming up. I might push it back to 12:30 with this craziness. I think it might be a waste to be on that early. So 12:30 vocal. I'm going to push that back. Final 30 minutes of trade deadline, probably the 30 minutes after. All right. Have a good one.